Hi, I'm Ron James, and this is another edition of Bigger Questions. I have with me from Ancient Aliens, Mike Bara. Mike is also the author of the book Dark Mission that he co-wrote with Richard Hoagland. And then he's also got Ancient Aliens on the Moon, Ancient Aliens on Mars, and now you've got Ancient Aliens on Mars 2 coming out?
Ancient Aliens on Mars 2 is already out. I've also got Ancient Aliens and Secret Societies.
You're writing books faster than I can keep
really,
up.
and the new one is called Secret Agenda, NASA and the Secret Space Program. So that's, or actually Hidden Agenda, NASA and the Secret Space Program. So that's brand new.
So how far back does the inception of the Secret Space Program go, and when did there become an actual cover-up where NASA is one wing of the space program,
right,
and then we have a whole other thing that's going on surreptitiously?
Well, I think that split happened about 1960 when John F. Kennedy took office, and he tried to find out what Majestic 12 or MJ-12 was doing, and they wouldn't let him have any information. There's even a memo that says, you know, Lancer, which is JFK's Secret Service name, is inquiring as to our activities, and this is something we cannot allow. And I think what happened was he got stonewalled, and so he was like, okay, to heck with you guys, I'm going to make my own space program, secret space program, under the guise of a public space program, which was NASA. So I think that split happened in 1960. As of the first part of your question, it goes all the way back to the 1800s, because what we find is that in the 1800s, there was this organization in Prussia that was called NIMZA, N-Y-M-Z-A, or N-J-M-Z-A. Nobody really knows exactly what it stood for, but it has something to do with airships and aerial reconnaissance office and that kind of thing. And it was basically funded by a bunch of Prussian, later to be German industrialists who were fascinated by the ancient texts, the Vedas and the stories of the Vimanas, and they begin to piece together through they looked at these as if they were physicists rather than religious texts. And they begin to recognize that there was a possibility of building anti-gravity machines, flying technology. That's what they felt was embedded in that. So they started a practical program to actually create that. And then you begin to have, of course, the work of the Nazis in the 1930s. There was the Vril Society came forward with Maria Orsic, where she was working on all of these different technologies that she was supposedly channeling from aliens, writing down all this runic script, as if this runic script stuff had something to do with actually making the craft work. And you look at Delshau's paintings, and he also has this coded information that nobody's broken yet on his technical drawings that are very, very similar to what Maria Orsic was working on 10, 15 years later, channeling. And that gets into the whole Nazi Bell development stuff that happened during World War II.
Now, what's your take on this code and how they were getting it and what it means?
I think that the code is some sort of symbolic or runic alphabet that's channeled from higher level beings. I'm not going to say aliens because I'm not necessarily sure that they are aliens, but definitely getting this information to help them actually make these craft work. It's interesting too because Hermann Oberth, who's sort of the father of the rocketry, German rocketry programs, which von Braun developed, he said flat out in 2 interviews that, you know, we didn't develop this stuff on our own. The people of other worlds have helped us. So he's basically acknowledging that there was some sort of extraterrestrial presence.
Going further, was he acknowledging that there was an interactive presence? We're past the end of World War II.
Right.
We're into the incident at the Capitol has already happened.
Has happened.
And so the secret space program is starting to actually gain some legs and actually have some results. Mm-hmm. What does it look like? It
looks like flying saucers. It looks like you're building a fleet of flying saucers that theoretically are capable, with very, very little energy expenditure, of even going to the next star system, even going to Alpha Centauri, and be arriving there in 3, 4, 5 months, depending on how fast you want to go. And there's no question that you could have certainly gone to Mars, gone to the moon, come back numerous times in secret before we ever built the rockets, and nobody would ever know about it. Meantime, von Braun and the other rocketry guys are building their chemical rockets, which of course by comparison are very, very primitive, but they're also something that the American public or the public at large would find acceptable. Because, I mean, to jump from propeller-driven airplanes to maybe jet airplanes and then to flying saucers is a huge, huge leap. So they bring us the next step, which is chemical rockets. And those were, of course, problematic to develop. But what I think happens is in 1960, Kennedy gets in office, and he's the first president that has excluded from the MJ-12 information, from the information about aliens. And he is, you know, there's a long history of Kennedy having an interest in aliens and UFOs, expressing that as a senator. He was probably not a guy they were very happy with. And he railed against the secret societies. Remember that? He made this great speech about secret societies and all this stuff and how horrible it was and how people shouldn't believe in it. And the first 2 times he proposed it in private, Khrushchev said no. The third time he proposed it was on September 20th, 1963, a little more than 2 months before he was killed, at the UN, very, very publicly. And a lot of people came out against that and said, oh, we don't want to do that. But this time, Khrushchev appears to have accepted it because his son, Sergei, says that he was taking a walk with his father in early November of 1963, and they were talking about this, and Khrushchev said, we're never going to beat the Americans. They're going to beat it. They're going to beat us to the moon. So either we're going to take this tremendous embarrassment, or if we join with them, we can save face and we can find out what they find out. We can share this, and it might be good for both of our peoples to do this. So Khrushchev had apparently accepted Kennedy's proposal to go to the moon together. And how we know that is because, again, Dr. Bob Wood has unearthed 2 documents, MJ-12 documents, or National Security Action Memos, which are the last 2 National Security Action Memos that Kennedy ever wrote. In the first one, he instructs, and this is the one we've all seen, he instructs the director of NASA to open an office within NASA to start exchanging information between our side and their side, a joint space program. So actually, you will open an office, James Webb, you will open this office, you will start exchanging information with the Russians. I want it done by February, he said. And then there's another secret security action memo, which some people argue is a forgery, but it's not, where he says, we also need to make sure that, this is to the CIA director, we also need to make sure that we provide them with information on all of the secret craft that we are developing so that they are able to tell the difference between our craft and the bona fide UFOs. Now, people think that means Kennedy was going to tell the whole world about aliens and UFOs. That's not what he was going to do. What he was going to do was he was going to go to the moon, he was going to share whatever we found there, which potentially would have been earth-shattering technologies that we could then reverse engineer, and you know, 10 days later after he wrote these 2 memos, his head got blown off in Dallas by...
Now we're here at the present time, and a lot of stories are coming out about the extent of the secret space program.
Right.
It's really hard to separate the BS from what's true.
Right.
So, you know, we have people like Corey Goode, who's, oh, well, yeah, I was at Mars. I'm part of this galactic thing. And other people that seem to be saying the same story, that the secret space program is really a vast entity, and that we're engaged with extraterrestrials, and that there's just this whole, as Richard Dolan says, breakaway civilization that's happening right under our noses. But then there's other people that say, well, you know, it's not like that, but there is a lot of classified technology involved in the secret space program, and we've certainly been places that we're not telling. So there's a huge chasm of information just being dropped. It goes from very basic to extremely esoteric and really unbelievable. And so where do you fall in the spectrum?
Well, I do talk about Corey Goode and Andrew Basiago in the book, and you know, the point I make is that these are really interesting stories. They may have some kernel of truth in them, but neither one of the guys has really any proof of what they're saying. So I like to stick with the proof. To me, I'm a nuts and bolts guy. So what is it that we can actually prove? And you know, I mean, I look at John Leonard Walson's photographs of what look like space platforms in orbit, and there are people that argue that those are fake or they're hoaxes, but they look to me like craft in orbit, and it looks consistent with what, given the motion and the atmospheric, diffusion, it looks to me like that's what we would expect to see. So I think there are probably space platforms up there that house these things. There's development of what's called an ARV, or the Alien Reproduction Vehicle, that Mark McClandis talked about, and I cover that in the book, where it looks like we've developed our own flying saucer technology of some kind. There is a distinct possibility that it's all human beings, but I do think there's no question there's aliens coming here, and there's aliens interacting with people.